Today, we're going to unpack a massive, high stakes business story about the future of global digital infrastructure. It's a classic David versus Goliath scenario, but in this case, the battlefield is the very foundation of the internet we use every single day.
To really wrap our heads around this, let's step away from the technology for a second. Imagine if every single store, office, and apartment in your city suddenly had to rent space from just 3 landlords. If you wanted to open a business, you had to ask for their permission. And those 3 landlords, they could raise your rent, change the rules, or just completely shut down your building at any time. You'd probably feel incredibly vulnerable, right?
Well, that is pretty much exactly how today's centralized internet works. The web has stopped looking like an open, bustling city and has really started to resemble a privately owned shopping mall. Today, a tiny handful of trillion-dollar tech companies control a staggering $781 billion cloud computing monopoly. They are quite literally the landlords of our digital world.
And this centralized control isn't just an annoyance, it's a massive human and economic problem. If 3 companies hold all of our data, they hold all of the power. Which brings us to a really critical question. How could a decentralized network ever hope to take on giants like Amazon and Google? I mean, how can any new technology actually compete with a trillion-dollar monopoly? To understand the massive scale of the challenger trying to do exactly that, we have to look at business strategies, not just software architecture. Think of it like this. If blockchains were transportation systems, Bitcoin would be a highly secure lockdown vault. Ethereum would be a major congested financial city. Solana would be a high-speed highway. But the network we're exploring today, it's trying to build the entire open country. Enter the Internet Computer, or ICP. This is a sovereign challenger that is attempting to do the impossible. Imagine your everyday apps, things like Netflix, Uber, or Gmail, living entirely inside a giant global digital machine rather than sitting inside Amazon's physical warehouses. It's a completely decentralized alternative, and it's aiming to replace the entire cloud. How do they do it? Through their core technology, which are called canisters. But don't just picture boring lines of code here. Think of canisters as entirely self-operating digital businesses. They bundle the code and the memory together into one unit. It's basically like having the building, the employees, the cash register, and the operating manual all wrapped into one neat package. And they can serve full websites directly to your browser without ever needing a traditional web server. And look, this isn't just some theoretical white paper stuff. The Internet Computer claims it can host full apps natively, and we have real evidence with platforms like OpenChat. This is an application running its entire front-end and back-end directly on the blockchain. There is absolutely zero reliance on centralized cloud providers. Every single thing you click, read, or send is processed entirely on-chain. Okay, so that sounds incredibly impressive, right? But here's the massive elephant in the room. If the technology is truly superior, why are Amazon and Google still dominating? Well, it's because traditional enterprises absolutely hate crypto volatility. Imagine you're the CFO of a Fortune 500 company. There is no way you're going to sign off on an operating expense where your monthly server bill could swing 20% in a single day just because a token's price changed. So the real genius here is how they solved that specific business problem. They built something called cloud engines. It's a brilliant financial abstraction. An enterprise just pays a totally predictable invoice in stable fiat currency, like US dollars or Swiss francs. Then, behind the scenes, a smart contract gateway automatically buys ICP tokens and immediately burns them to create stable computation fuel, which they call cycles. The enterprise gets a flat, predictable bill and never actually has to touch volatile crypto. This setup creates what's known as a reverse gas model. Now, in traditional crypto, you, the user, pay a fee every single time you click a button or make a move. But here, the developers pay the rent so that you can just walk into the digital store for free. You don't need to download a crypto wallet, and you definitely don't pay gas fees just to interact with the decentralized web. But for this ecosystem to truly grow, it needed to expand outward. The problem? Traditional crypto bridges, which connect different networks, are incredibly vulnerable and highly prone to devastating hacks. Their solution to this is a piece of tech called chain fusion. It acts as a direct, secure pipeline. It completely bypasses those hack-prone third-party bridges, allowing different networks like Bitcoin and Ethereum to talk to each other and share liquidity without taking on those massive security risks. Economically speaking, this is an absolute game changer for the booming AI sector. We are moving away from passive chatbots just sitting on a centralized server to an active, deployed software engineer operating autonomously on a decentralized network.
Because these canisters can hold logic and data natively, massive AI models can run completely on-chain. It essentially gives an AI its very own wallet, allowing it to autonomously fund, build, and deploy software.
So who is actually willing to pay for all this next-level infrastructure? Mostly governments and massive institutions. By ensuring all physical data storage and processing stays strictly within specific borders, like, say, their dedicated Swiss subnet, they are aggressively going after the $80 billion sovereign cloud market. This is purpose-built for institutions that absolutely must comply with strict, localized data privacy laws.
All right, so far this sounds like an absolutely bulletproof enterprise pitch. But we have to address a massive point of tension here. If the business model is so revolutionary and the tech actually works, why did the market punish the tokens so relentlessly? I mean, why did the price crash by 99% from its 2021 all-time high of over $750?
The harsh reality boils down to what we call the narrative complexity bottleneck. Having the fastest engine in the world literally doesn't matter if nobody knows how to drive the car. The ecosystem suffered from incredibly steep learning curves for developers, a really complicated narrative that just confused the market, and massive token inflation. All of that severely suppressed the asset's value, completely overshadowing the actual technological breakthroughs they were making.
To combat that massive inflationary overhang, the ecosystem is going through a strategic reset for 2026 known as Mission 70. The main objective here is to aggressively cut token inflation by 70%. The economic goal is pretty straightforward. As AI usage and enterprise adoption naturally burn more of those computation cycles, drastically cutting the new supply aims to create a really powerful supply-demand squeeze. Now, deflationary economics are great for long-term believers, for sure, but the big doubt still remains. Can a tokenomics reset actually overcome developer inertia? Can they convince the broader market to leave the safety, familiarity, and sheer convenience of Amazon Web Services to come build on a decentralized cloud? Let's move to our final section, the 2026 final verdict. This is the objective investor outlook.
Look, we're not here to give you a buy or sell recommendation. Instead, let's objectively answer 4 critical investor questions about this David versus Goliath play. First, what are they actually trying to build here? This isn't just another platform for trading meme coins. It's a full-stack decentralized world computer capable of hosting the front end, the back end, and all the data natively. They are building a sovereign environment designed specifically to handle heavy AI and massive enterprise workloads.
Second, what actually has to happen for the bull case to succeed? Well, global enterprises and governments have to actively migrate their AI and data workloads to this network to escape vendor lock-in. That real-world usage has to drive massive computational cycle burns, while at the same time, that Mission 70 initiative has to successfully limit supply dilution to actually create economic value. Third, what could prove the bear case right? Well, if the technology stays too complex to easily explain, and developers just stick to what they know. If builders simply decide to stay with the massive convenience, incredible scale, and integrated services of AWS and Google Cloud, that narrative complexity is going to prevent the mass institutional adoption they absolutely need to survive. Fourth, and this is absolutely crucial, the single most important metric you need to watch over the next 5 years is not the short-term price chart. It is the sustainable rate of cycles burned per useful real-world AI action. That is the true measure of whether this network is actually being used as vital infrastructure or if it's just existing as speculative theater. Ultimately, this entire battle for the backbone of the internet comes down to one monumental question. Will our digital world remain a privately owned shopping mall controlled by a few powerful landlords, or will it evolve into an open, decentralized country? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the infrastructure around you, and I'll see you next time.